I'll call the meeting to order. This is the October 10, 2017 meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission for the Town of Fairfield. The first item on our agenda is the meeting minutes from October 10, 2017. And we have a bit of a skeleton crew here this evening. Commissioner Grauer, you'll be sitting for Commissioner Kennelly.
Take your pick.
Take my pick, yeah. What's your pleasure? So you'll be on tonight. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner McAleese and seconded by Commissioner Francis.
I'm just noticing this now, but that should be the minutes of September 26th, not of October 10th.
Yep, on the agenda, forgive me. So the minutes are correct.
Right.
But the agenda...
The agenda is incorrect.
Right, so, and I just read it without thinking about it. So it is motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 26, 2017 by Commissioner McAleese, seconded by Commissioner Francis.
I didn't find anything
No.
out of order.
Okay, I didn't either. I didn't see any corrections or anything. You ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the minutes are adopted unanimously. Next item is closed executive session to discuss pending litigation regarding 309 Barberry Road. And I'll just entertain a motion to go in.
Motion to go into executive session.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Noonan, second by Commissioner McAleese. No discussion necessary. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. We'll go into closed executive session, and we'll be right out. I'll call the meeting back to order. So we're back in open executive session. No decisions were made and no votes were taken in closed executive session. Next item on our agenda are new applications to recommend a public hearing. 105 Meadowcroft Road, special exception application of the Town of Fairfield pertaining to additions and alterations to Holland Hill School in the A zone.
I have nothing to add to that, Mr. Chairman. It's a special exception, does require a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Make a motion to move public hearings if it's required.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner McAleese.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Francis. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next is 5151 Park Avenue, special exception application of Sacred Heart University for modification to a previously approved recreational building in the R3 zone.
This building was what the university referred to at the time as their end zone building. You may recall there was a building approved in this. They want to change the design a little bit, and so we felt that it warranted a new revised application to be made. So also requires public hearing.
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Francis,
Second.
second by Commissioner McAleese. Any questions? No? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Move to public hearing unanimously. Next is compliances, 418 Meadow Street, compliance application of Philip Cerrone, architect, to establish an office use in a portion of an existing building in the design commercial district.
Mr. Chairman, 418 Meadow Street is a building, it's a commercial condominium. It's a two-story building that's adjacent to the turnpike along Meadow Street. It's kind of behind the street that runs down to the Lexus service facility. There's what they're looking to do is carve out approximately 1,800 square feet of what is now warehouse space and make it into office space. It is in the design commercial district. It was in a design industrial district when this property was first built. They've demonstrated in their letter of intent and on the plans that they have the adequate parking for that conversion. It's 1,800 feet from what was warehouse-based office space. We agree with the calculations, and it's our opinion that it complies with the regs.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have a motion for
So
discussion?
moved.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Francis,
Second.
second by Commissioner Noonan. Okay. Commissioner Francis, any comments?
No.
Commissioner Noonan?
Nothing more that staff has said that it complies.
Okay. I did review it. I didn't see any non-compliance issues. Anyone else? Okay, we ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the compliance is approved unanimously. Next is 195 Fairfield Beach Road, coastal site plan application of Alan Bertucci pertaining to a single-family dwelling in the A zone.
Mr. Chairman, you may recall that our previous meeting, the property next door at 193 Fairfield Beach Road, there was a similar application. We received a letter from the Flood and Erosion Control Board making a recommendation to raise the dune height in front of that house. We have a similar letter with respect to this particular property. And as you may recall, 193 Fairfield Beach Road was determined that a public hearing was warranted, and that's scheduled for next week. It's our recommendation, since these are next door properties, similar issues, you may want to consider a public hearing. We've already kind of taken the preemptive move to kind of already publish that so the two could be heard as kind of side-by-side applications. So it may make sense to move to a public hearing.
So if we do move it to public hearing, it's already been noticed, and it can be
Yeah,
heard
that's
next
not,
week.
that certainly doesn't obligate the commission to have a hearing, but we were just hedging our bets, and since the other one was going to be scheduled, we published it preemptively, but it doesn't tie your hands in any respect.
Right.
Move to public hearing.
Okay, motion
Second.
to move to public hearing
Second.
by Commissioner Francis with a second by Commissioner Noonan. Commissioner Francis?
Yeah, based on the desire of residents to speak on 193, I'm sure we'll see the same thing for 195.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Noonan?
No, just that it's a companion, that we moved to public hearing. Appreciate the staff foresight to
Yeah.
put this together.
No, it's definitely appreciated. Any comments down
I
here?
just have a question, what's the date on that public hearing?
Be a week from tonight.
So it's next week?
Yeah. So what Mr. Went was saying is that they kind of anticipated that we might be inclined to do that, so they noticed it and published that for
We've got
next
it,
week.
yeah, typically, it's a little unusual because our October schedule was modified earlier in the year. Normally, we'd have 2 weeks between meetings, but our October schedule is we have back-to-back meetings, so we didn't have if we had waited, it would push it to November, so
Right.
we kind of took the leap.
Yeah. So that's good.
Normally, we'd be able to have time to publish it, after your consideration, but we just figured since there was public interest in the first application, it made sense to pair the two together.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
My other question to staff, I guess, would be, did we request, or can we request that the Flood Erosion Control Board have a representative here, perhaps, to answer questions?
You have you do have the letter from the current chairman. It's my understanding that he plans to participate, but I can certainly, we
Okay.
can't compel him to do so, but I can certainly let him know that you might be interested to ask him some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that, because I think I brought up in the last meeting that, this is a big picture issue, perhaps. I don't think it's going to end at these two properties.
I will certainly extend the invitation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very good. Any other comments? No? All right. Ready to vote? Motion is to move this application to public hearing. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? To move to public hearing unanimously. Okay, next is public hearing. So, first two items are 2500 Black Rock Turnpike, application of ACM Realty LLC to establish a design commercial district on land presently zoned R3, and also a special permit application of ACM Realty for conversion of an existing bank to a restaurant and related site improvements. So, Attorney Fallon, just before you get started, I'd just like to make a couple of procedural remarks. So, I anticipate that some or many of you here in the audience are here for this application. I understand that the notice that was mailed to residents somehow had a delay in the U.S. mails, and that some of the residents didn't get the envelope until just a couple days ago. So we want to be as fair as we can be. So regardless of how timing works out tonight, the applicant is going to make their presentation. We'll go to public comment, and anyone who's here that wants to can speak tonight. But we're going to keep the public hearing open, and we'll put it over again onto next week's agenda. And so if you don't want to speak tonight, you want to wait until next week to study some further documents, gather your thoughts, what have you, you're free to do that. And there'll be an opportunity then for further public comment at next week's hearing as well. Okay? Then once all the members of the public have been heard, the applicant will then have their rebuttal opportunity, and then the public hearing will close. And hopefully that will be, next week, unless there's something crazy happens. Tell your neighbors if there are people who, just recently got notice and couldn't be here. Just spread the word that, there'll be another opportunity for public comment on this application, these applications, next week as well. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, good evening. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm pleased to be here representing the applicant, who I will introduce momentarily. I appreciate the Commission's and the Chair's sensitivity to ensuring everyone has adequate time to participate in the proceedings. I also appreciate the Chair and the Commission's willingness to continue this in the manner the Chair indicates to next week, because obviously my clients, who I'll introduce shortly, are under some significant contractual and time pressures, and being able to have this hearing continued to next week in the spirit that the Chair mentioned, and hopefully concluded next week, is really very helpful and important to us. So I just wanted to state that for the record. The applications before you are obviously for a change of zone, which I'll detail, and a special permit and site plan approval. For purposes of the record, this hearing and the record created as part of this hearing shall serve with the Chair's permission to be the record for both these applications, which I assume will be heard at this one joint hearing. My clients, the principals of my clients, are obviously here tonight. Mary Walsh, Jake Salpietro. Mary and Jake, if you just want to get up and say hello. Mary will address the Commission in a moment, because I think she can speak much more eloquently and persuasively to the vision relative to this particular restaurant than I could. So she will be part of our presentation. Also with me tonight is Phil Cerrone, who is our architect, who will walk you through the site plan and the floor plan. Rob Pryor of Landtech, should you have any questions about the site engineering, which has been reviewed and approved both by the Wetlands Department, the Conservation Department, and by the Engineering Department. And also Steve Cipolla of Frederick P. Clark and Associates will be here to summarize for you the findings in your traffic report, which you do have. A few words about Mary. Mary's a remarkable person. You'll meet her yourself in a few moments. She's been very, very actively involved in her community for many, many decades. She's been the head of the Westport Soccer Association, board member for many years, director of the travel soccer program for 5 years. She's also found time to serve as a very active member of the Longlots, Bedford Middle, and Staples High School's PTA over a period of 18 years. She's founded a member of the Staples Girls Soccer Booster Club and was manager of the United Soccer Club of 2002. She's been manager of various other Connecticut teams and sports, helped raise a lot of funds for athletics in the area. The point I'm making, which I think is important to the presentation, is she's always had a focus on youth sports. As evidenced by that, her two daughters, one of whom is here tonight, is presently an active scholarship soccer player at Fairfield University, as was her sister before her, who's now attending Boston College Law School, but was unavailable to sub for me tonight, so you're stuck with me instead. Jake Salpietro is probably one of the best-known baseball players in Fairfield history. He was certainly one of the best hitters ever to wear Stag uniforms. He was a conference MVP in the MAC and won the Louisville Slugger National Player of the Week Award. And this Jake now is a coach at Fairfield U, and he and Mary have this vision for a restaurant that I will try to describe, but that I think Mary will probably do a better job. So what is our concept? Why are we here to take a global look at this application? Hail Mary's, as we are calling it, we envision as a family-friendly restaurant that is the culmination of particularly Mary's passion for the Fairfield community and its local sports team. We envision a welcoming place to celebrate youth sports in Fairfield. We have a commitment at the root of this application to community involvement with a very friendly atmosphere and a selection of food that everybody in a family will enjoy. Jake and Mary take very seriously the concept of giving back to the community, and they envision sponsoring local teams and being a go-to spot for team-friendly celebrations involving the student athletes and their parents. Let me give you a comparison. I don't know, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Colony Grill. Well, the Colony Grill, in terms of its focus of a family-oriented, community-involved restaurant providing that type of opportunities for families, is what we're going to duplicate here on Black Rock Turnpike. Let me say one other thing about the Colony Grill. I have 7 grandchildren. I know you find that hard to believe. But I, like you, will take them and their friends to the Colony Grill, and guess what we'll do a lot? We'll wait, and that's fine, because it's popular and because it serves a real niche in our community of diverse restaurant opportunities. What that tells you, I think, when you wait for a table, is that there is a need and a market for another similarly focused restaurant focusing on family-friendly service, local sports, community support, and participation. Now, let's take the applications in turn. There's a zone change application that is part of this. Let me speak to that first. And where's the best place for me to put this? This is just a colored version of what you already have. But let me start with the numbers. And I'd ask that you jot these down. I have a couple of copies, and I will certainly get more from Mr. Wendt. But I notice in some of the correspondence you've received, there's a reference to an increase in the commercial zone area of 50%. Here are the numbers. And please look at this chart, which hopefully you can see. The total lot area, and this is the total lot here, is 98,214 square feet. The currently existing commercially zoned portion of the property, which is this area here, that is in gray and marked off inside this dotted blue line, is 22,916 square feet. The area of the zone change that we propose, which is this area here outside of the blue line, is 6,348 square feet. 6,348 square feet, or approximately 6.5% of the overall size of the parcel of 98,478 feet. So what we're talking about here when we talk about the zone change is to take 6,348 square feet and by moving it approximately 14 feet over on the north and maybe about 16 feet to the east, add 6,348 square feet of property to the commercially zoned portion of the property. One other thing that, yes, sir.
When you come to a logical conclusion on this point, I have a question.
Okay. The other thing I was going to point out with regard to the property as a whole is the balance of this property, the residentially zoned portion of this property, will be 69,214 square feet of residentially zoned property, and that will be unchanged. And in addition to it being residentially zoned, it is encumbered by a land recorded conservation easement in its totality, which precludes any development of this property, anything other than picking berries and removing dead and diseased vegetation. And for that, you also need conservation approval. If you look at, and I will stop so you can get the question. If you look at the zone map, okay, what I think is important to putting this in context, all of this in red is our site, okay?
In red?
Huh? All of this outlined in red,
Oh,
I'm
I
sorry,
see, yeah.
is our property. If I come forward, I think, and I'll talk loud enough so the mic can be up.
Yeah.
This entire portion, this is our overall property,
Yeah.
okay?
So let me just ask if, are you getting this on the video? You have a shot on the map? All right, good. So for any members of the public, let me just address this, because these aren't even in the, I don't have that in the record.
Right, where you have the map, but you don't have the
Yeah,
colors.
right, okay. So the good thing about us carrying this over until next week for public comment is that all of you are going to be able to watch this on video, on demand, and you'll be able to hear Mr. Fallon, you'll be able to see these on the screen, blown up.
And
You
we'll
can,
leave them with staff. as well.
right, you can pause and so forth, and you'll be able to get copies of these from staff in the office as well, okay? So, and I understand that it's difficult sitting in the audience when they've got these charts up here that you can't see, so.
So, with
Go
that understood, this is the parcel. As I've just described, this portion of the property is the property that's currently commercially zoned at the square footage that I referenced. This yellow hatched area is the portion that is involved in the zone change, no more, no less. This entire area of the property is residentially zoned, will remain so, and is encumbered with a conservation easement that's of record. The only reason I give you this map as well, because hopefully you'll have a chance too, in considering this application, to look at this zone map, because what it's going to tell you is, this is the next door property. This is the shopping center right next door. The commercial zone is out to here on this property. So that all of these properties, and I don't know who those people are or whether they're here tonight or not, they are already abutting commercially zoned property, and not as a result of our property or as a result of the zone change we proposed. All this is commercial across the street as well. So I just wanted to give you these graphics.
What's in the blue, in the adjacent commercial property, the shopping center, the light blue horseshoe that's around the back of it?
It's a split zone,
Yep.
and it's surrounded
I
by
understand
residential property.
I understand it's zoned residential, but is
Is that
there?
the parking? Is that the parking when you go behind that building?
No,
No, I don't think so.
No, there's no parking there,
I
it's
just
zoned
think it's
residential.
there. I mean,
And my question is whether there's any construction on that.
No, to the best of my knowledge, there is not.
It's just open space.
Land.
Land, yeah.
Okay.
As I don't think it looks big enough to actually have a house there, there's no road access to it. There's no, it's
just
a locked lot.
landlocked. Whenever they change the zone of this portion of this property to accommodate the shopping center and its
Yeah.
parking, they drew the line this way. Before-
And you don't know whether that area...
buffer.
Yeah, well, and you don't know whether that area is also subject to conservation easement
I don't.
or otherwise.
I don't
Okay.
believe it is,
All
but
right.
this is,
All right.
okay?
So can I ask you a question while you're standing there with that?
Mhm.
So the striped area, the land that's subject to the zone change, right?
Yes.
So what is presently on that land today?
What is that, Phil, do you want to do? Yeah, this is a Google map of that area. And basically, what is there now,
It's trees,
Just trees,
correct, and
yeah.
so we're looking to just extend this over.
Well, no, you're,
No,
you're,
we're
yeah,
here, right here, right here.
yeah, I understand, yeah.
So yes,
So presently, it's undeveloped.
correct.
In the strip, the 6,800 square foot strip that you're, 6,300 plus is presently undeveloped,
Correct.
all right? Is that portion also subject to the conservation
No,
easement?
It is not. We've received, as I'll go through in a minute, conservation approval, and the conservation easement is not being invaded at all.
Where does that start, the conservation easement? Because you said all of the balance of the land outside of the portion that you're seeking the
Right.
zone change for is subject to a conservation easement.
Conservation easement begins at this point of the dotted line,
the outer
why we
one.
wanted to extend the
So you,
commercial
okay,
zone.
so you didn't seek or need a change
I did
to the
not.
conservation
No.
easement. You're seeking to build out the existing commercial zone to the edge of the conservation
Correct.
easement.
And as I'll address in my remarks, we did it and received a unanimous inland wetlands permit approval for that. But I'll address
Okay.
it.
To clarify that,
Yeah.
so this weird strip was just an odd little piece of residential zone?
It was
stuck up-
not correct.
Well, the whole thing behind that
But that
is-
didn't have the easement on it.
it didn't have the conservation
That was
easement on
correct.
it. For whatever reason, of the 69
Yeah.
1,214 plus 6,800, the 69,214 square feet is subject to the conservation easement, but 6,348 square feet was left as a strip
Yes.
before, in between the conservation easement, zone residential, and the design, and the commercially zoned area?
Yes, that's correct. So that we could accommodate this modest zone change without need to request any
Yeah.
change in the conservation easement area, which remains as it was originally approved.
So, basic question. Why go through the process of a zone change in order to build out a 6,800 square foot strip?
Because-
You've got commercially zoned,
Because, and I'll address that as well, we want to establish a restaurant use. I'll go through that. We want that restaurant use to be viable, successful, and functioning in terms of what we expect it to offer our customers. To do that, we needed to accomplish an amount of patron floor area that we'll review momentarily. And in order to accommodate that patron floor area, we needed some additional parking. And that's all we're doing here.
so that additional space is being sought
Correct.
for parking.
Correct.
Okay,
As you'll see when we go through the site.
all right.
Okay? So,
Any other questions on this point? Commissioner Grauer? Yeah?
John, am I correct in assuming that this little shaded area is residential, and you can't build on the conservation easement part,
correct.
and the shaded area that you're looking to do for parking isn't big enough to build residential on?
No, that's exactly correct. All we want to use is, though we do want to extend the commercial zone by this 6,348 square feet to accommodate the additional parking we need in order to make our restaurant compliant. That's all.
You're basically going to turn dirt into pavement in this zone change.
That area, correct. That's 6,000 square foot, correct. There'll be no construction beyond parking.
And what are
Thank
the,
you.
what are the dimensions of it? 20 feet wide or what?
I'll ask, can somebody get me that, and I'll get back. Just the dimensions of that little L shape, I'll get you that. I can tell you it's approximately 14 feet up to this
North.
direction, but we'll get you the dimensions. But it totals, as I said, 6,348 square
You
feet.
said 14 by 16, so.
Yeah, that there, but I'll get you the exact dimensions. I'll get you the exact dimensions, okay? I just don't want to hold that up while they're doing their math.
Yep.
But it
No,
totals
that's-
6,348 square feet.
And
Stop.
to be clear, if you made the restaurant a little bit smaller, you wouldn't need to the additional parking and therefore wouldn't need the zone change for the 6,300 square feet.
The only qualification I'd say there is a little bit smaller. We'd have to make the restaurant smaller to the extent that we would be very concerned about its viability and our ability to...
I understand that, but as a
Correct.
matter of just factually,
Right.
you know,
Said another way.
you could build a restaurant on the existing commercially zoned area. It would need to be smaller, which would require less parking, which would mitigate the need for the zone change.
Correct.
Got it.
And said the other way without belaboring it, or not the other way, but just as a point to that, because we've covered this, I think, well, I just wanted to put in perspective, and I think these drawings do it, two things. The zone change here is not, as you often see, to come in and rezone an acre or a half acre of residentially zoned property to put it to structural commercial use. We seek to change the zone of approximately 6,300 square feet of property. We will do nothing on that property except use it for parking accessory to the restaurant that we want to be accessible and viable. And in the meantime, this site will continue to be buffered by over an acre and a half of residentially zoned property that is also under conservation easement. So this is not the type of zone change that you may often or sometimes see where there is an aggressive attempt to rezone residentially zoned property to put it to commercial use that it's not been put to before. That leads me into the last thing I want to talk about, the zone change, and that is the plan of conservation and development, which you have to look at in looking at the zone change. If you look at section 2.3.6 at page 38 of your plan of conservation and development, that's the section that talks about sand mortar / Black Rock Turnpike. What it establishes as policies that are relevant to this application is, and I quote, diversity of commercial uses to maintain and increase the vitality of the business corridor should be encouraged. Diversity of commercial uses to maintain and increase the vitality of the business corridor should be encouraged. Now, the other thing it says under policies is expansion of commercial districts should be resisted. Okay, that's why I took the time to go over this with you. Ultimately, you wear your planning hat, and you have the greatest discretion when you do so with regard to map amendments. So all I'm asking you to do on the zone change aspect is that when you balance the policy of diversity of commercial uses to maintain and increase the vitality of the business corridor should be encouraged against expansion of commercial districts should be resisted, that you keep this map in mind and that you remind yourself, I hope you will agree, that expansion of commercial districts should be resisted means taking a piece of property that is zoned residential, rezoning it commercial, and then establishing a commercial use there where none had been before. And that's a wholly different circumstance than this. Moving along. This restaurant, as we propose it with the zone change, and Mary and Jake and Phil have studied this very hard. We don't want a restaurant that's too large, but we need a restaurant that's large enough to succeed and to be able to do the things we want to do, especially with the family orientation that this restaurant will have. The restaurant will accommodate, as proposed, 1,680 square feet of patron floor area. That requires 42 parking spaces, and that is in fact what we require. Now, the first aspect of the zone change, what we propose. The first aspect of the zone, the first application is the zone change application, and I've discussed that. The second is a special permit and site plan application, which you will reach and hopefully approve if you grant the zone change. I would just want to point out with regard to that in accordance with section 12.4.17, restaurants are permitted uses in the zone. And I have this for everyone, and I also have smaller copies for you. Help me with the pod here, Richard. All right. Where's Vanna White if you need her? Now you know why I was a lawyer and not an engineer. Okay, so what do I have here? And I'll pass these out. As I said, after you've examined the special permit application, the zone change application, you're going to address the special permit and site plan. And one of the things that you're going to first start out with is that your regulations establish as a permitted use in the residential zone, restaurants. The map I'm showing you is a map that depicts about a 3/4 mile radius from our proposed restaurant.
Oh, my goodness.
And all the restaurants that exist within that 3/4 miles. And so you don't have to go through your own chart. Here they are. I believe they total 24. Again, the point being is we look at the zone change.
Milo Kitchen still in business?
And we determine that the zone change, as we've discussed it, is worthy of support. Then we come to looking at the special permit and site plan. And we start with the fact that it's a permitted use in the zone, and I'd respectfully suggest that it would be difficult if you reach that threshold of discussion to say that the restaurant use we propose is not an appropriate use for this piece of property in light of the fact that it's permitted into your regs and it's surrounded by varied types of restaurants within 3/4 of a mile. So that kind of gives you some context. What I'd like to do now in the first instance is
So-
call on, yes.
So before you then call your first speaker,
Yes.
Commissioner McAleese has a few
I have
questions.
a couple of questions. So, in that same section, 2.3.6 of the Plan of Conservation, it also suggests encourage opportunities for shared parking and vehicle access on Black Rock Turnpike to reduce the number of driveways, which I think is going to be a concern at some point when we hear the traffic report.
Mm-hmm.
Did you approach that at all with the adjacent
Well,
property, or?
We did not this time. I did when the bank was approved. There were two problems with that, and that goes back some time. There was not interest. And then the other problem that was, I thought, legitimate as well, was topography made a connection.
Oh,
to
I don't
be-
recall.
Yeah,
There's
if
a
you go
change in
out there,
elevation? I don't
if you go
know.
out there on the site,
Oh, is it? Okay.
yeah, there is a pedestrian connection, I believe. Is there not, Phil? Is there? There is a stairway that has been created. So there is pedestrian ingress and egress between the sites. But to answer your question, Ms. McAleese, that was looked at some years ago, and it just wasn't found to be feasible because of the topographical conditions.
I think one might make the argument, though, perhaps if there was agreement, that it could be worked out physically on how to deal with the transition from one site to the next.
I guess
Because I know, we're in the middle or about to begin a state study of Black Rock Turnpike, and this, this is a tough.
Conceptually, it makes a very, conceptually, I understand the idea. I think in the time, as you would have an opportunity to, whether you continue the hearing or not, when you go out on the site, you'll see the difficulty and the practical difficulty of trying to create the connection. The other thing that I would say, in deference to your comment, as we'll get into in our presentation momentarily, is the restaurant use based upon the traffic documentation that we provided to you, actually produces less traffic on a peak hour basis during typical Friday afternoon commuter peak and Saturday midday peak hours. We actually produce less traffic than the bank did.
Well, but because the bank is open during normal business hours and you've got people coming to work at 8,
No
9
doubt.
a.m., they're leaving at 4, 5, 6 p.m., and a restaurant is going to have its busy time during hours that are not the
Well-
peak, quote-unquote,
Well, that's
peak
why
hours.
we chose peak hours for the analysis, and I don't want to step on Mr. Sepola's presentation. That would be comparative to peak hours. We looked at, for purposes of measuring the restaurant impact, a Friday afternoon commuter peak hour, 5 o'clock when the roads are busy.
Right.
And we also looked at Saturday midday peak, okay? Because those are when the roads are busiest.
I understand
At
those,
9
but-
o'clock at night,
Yeah.
or at 10 o'clock at night, the roads aren't busy. And the only
I-
point I'm making in reference to Mr.
I don't know
McAfee,
about that.
well,
But on Black Rock Turnpike,
they're
please.
not
On
busy.
Friday night at
they're
9
not-
p.m.?
They're not busy.
On Saturday night at 9
They're not
p.m.?
busy compared to what they are during the peak hours.
Perhaps, but try to make a left-hand turn at the sunny days at any time of day.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know.
with all due
Oh,
respect,
we
I mean, we
understand.
all know Black Rock
You
Turnpike.
have a job to do. We understand.
All I'm saying without being argumentative
But you
is-
can't say that a restaurant is going to produce less traffic than a bank at 9 o'clock on a Friday
Yeah.
night or 9 o'clock on a Saturday
I
night.
wouldn't say that, but what I would say is that during peak hour times, when you would be most concerned about traffic congestion, that are relevant to the restaurant's operation, we're producing less traffic than the bank did. And the other thing I would say without belaboring it is, that gets to the point that this is a commercially zoned piece of property, leaving aside the zone change.
Uh-huh.
It has numerous commercial uses, and the bank was not an absolutely benign use either. So, and as far as, I don't want to jump ahead of the traffic report, so I'll let that go there at this point. So, I'd like to call on, we're going to be brief, because I know a lot of people in the public, pro and con, want to speak, and we want to get to them tonight. I'm going to have Mr. Cerrone just give you an overview with regard to the site plan and the interior floor plan. And then I'm going to have Mr. Sepola talk to you about his traffic report of September 27th. And then I'm going to have Ms. Walsh speak to you about the concept, the vision here that we're trying to create.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Philip Cerrone. My office is here in Fairfield. I'm the architect for this project. Before I do the presentation I was going to do, I just want to answer the question that was asked before. The piece of property that's in the the back of the property is that we're taking and going, changing the zone is approximately, at worst case, 25 feet wide by approximately 200 feet long. The piece of property on the north side of the property that's changing the zone is approximately 14 feet by 100 feet. It's not a perfectly straight line, so that the 25s, 21, 26, it varies across there, but that at least gives you kind of a general idea.
It's enough for a lane to drive
Yeah.
and a parking space on one side, right?
Well,
Yeah, that's what the drawing shows.
and I'll answer that question when we walk through the site, but, so to answer your question, there's, the existing parking lot doesn't go up exactly to where the zone line is. So there's this little swath of land between the existing pavement and the zone change line. So there's a small swath of land in addition that we're taking. Right now, where this line is here, there's a retaining wall. There's actually a retaining wall on all 3 sides of the property.
Yeah.
There's really a retaining wall on all 4, because the one in the front goes down to Black Rock Turnpike. But the retaining wall on the north side and on the east side, we're going to be taking those retaining walls down and moving them back. But the wall is not exactly on the line that's the zone change. So there is a little bit, and when you get down this end, there's maybe 15 or 20 feet of grass, and on this end there's a little bit more. There is a retaining wall on the south end too, which does make the transition between the 2 properties. So we didn't study that, as John said, but there is definitely a grade drop over here. Just to kind of walk you through the site quickly, the bank's approximately 3,400 square feet, the existing building, and it currently has parking mostly on the south side over here. what we're proposing is to take the drive-through, right now you drive around the entire building, and on the east side of the building, there's a drive-through. We want to take the drive-through down, and we're going to create, and then move our retaining wall back to almost to the conservation easement line. So we can create parking along basically three sides. So we'd add the parking on the east side of the property. The parking on the south side basically stays as it is, although we'll be reconfiguring it. And then on the north side, we're going to add parking on this side over here also. We've also, of course, incorporated dumpsters in part of the property over here. We've also included some landscape islands in the parking area, which currently there is no landscape islands in the back of this property. We are adding some trees along there. That would be in front of the retaining wall.
Can you, before you go to the next one, can you explain the differences between the darker shade of green and the lighter shade of green? You've got a little spot that sort of pokes out into the conservation easement. Is there a distinction between the lighter and the darker?
I'm actually going to have to rely on my civil engineer who's sitting right here, because
Sure.
that's his map, Rob. So the difference between the two different grades.
Sure, for the record, Robert Pryor, professional engineer, land surveyor with Land Tech. And just to answer the question, the difference is the darker green is actually wooded, and the lighter green is more of a meadow, brush, grass
Okay.
area.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, but none of those are all landscaped areas. None of those have parking on them.
Right, and they're in the conservation easement, which restricts your ability to do
Right, so
anything
they're- that's
to
the way
them.
they
It's
exist
just going to
currently.
stay that way.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. As far as the building itself goes, on the interior of the building, we're proposing, as you know, it's currently a bank. What we're proposing is to take the north side of the building, and we're going to make that into our kitchen, our receiving area, kind of the back of house space. And on the on the south side of the building, it'll be basically our patron area. And as John said, the patron area is approximately 1,680 square feet, which translates to the, 42 cars, because the requirement's one car for every 40 square feet. We have some men's and women's rooms, a small bar in this area over here, and this basically, the bulk of the space is all tables and chairs with some booths in this area. We did put the back of house in the kitchen on the north side of the building so that we could get, we need some loading spaces, and we do have, so our loading would be on this side of the building over here, so trucks could come around the building, easy access around the entire building, and then come back out the side here. On the exterior of the building, the work we're doing is really minimal. As I said to you, we're taking the drive-through down, but that's on the back side of the building, so you don't really see that. The retaining wall that's in the back of the building varies from 4 feet, 5 feet high in one corner to as much as about 10 feet high along the middle of the wall, and then it slopes down towards Black Rock Turnpike. On the only real work we're doing besides taking down the drive-through is we're adding the signage on the 2 points where I believe the bank used to have their sign, and we're just kind of, reconfiguring one of the doors by just swapping the door on a side light. But really, other than that, the exterior of the building is going to stay just the way the exterior of the building is now. So that's kind of an overview.
So
Yep.
I think, Commissioner Noonan, you have a question?
Thank you. You're not making any major modifications to the building as far as increasing its size? or-
We are not increasing the footprint of the building at all. The shell of the building is staying the way it is. We did submit it came up at code, we did submit a roof plan, and the way the building is constructed, there's actually this section of the building where the roof is lower by about 5 feet. We have it on the roof plan. We put the elevations and everything on there for you. So if we add any mechanical equipment, roof exhaust, all that's going to be well below the parapet. We'd be putting in the back side of the building, so you won't see any of these things from the street.
What was the size of the entire building?
About 3,450 square feet.
Is it, with a loading truck in the loading area that's identified, is it possible for a car to sort of get around that with cars parked in the parking spaces?
Yeah, there's enough room if there's a loading truck there. If there's a loading truck here, if you look on the site plan, there's actually, the crosshatch area is a loading truck, And then the area next to it where there's underground drainage, that's more than wide enough for a vehicle to be able to pass by there. We would, of course, schedule the deliveries to be early in the morning. It would be very unusual that you would have a delivery when the restaurant's in full operation.
When there would be cars parked on that
Right,
side of the building?
exactly.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Cerrone?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call on Mrs. Sepola, two other things.
Not right now.
I didn't mention, I guess, but we did receive a unanimous approval of our inland wetlands permit application. That was granted back in July. I believe that is part of your record. The permit is in there. The other thing is, we did have a code enforcement review meeting. And that was, we got our certificate of wetlands conformance August 17th, 2017. We had a code review meeting on August 29, 2017. We have complied with the comments there. The one thing I would mention, and you can certainly address it with Mr. Sepola, there was a recommendation by the police department to restrict left-hand exit turns. In other words, make it right turn only out on the Black Rock Turnpike. Our position on that, although it's not hard and fast, and we leave it to your discretion, but after consultation with Mr. Sepola and his colleagues, they didn't find that to be advantageous for two reasons. They thought if you did restrict the exit to right turn only, you ran the risk of more people who wanted to go up Black Rock Turnpike, going out to the right, and then hooking some form of a U-turn either through the gas station property or something like that to get going. The other reason that they didn't think it was a great idea was it would encourage potentially people taking that right and then taking a left down onto St. Mortar, cutting back up, and thereby bringing more traffic into the neighborhood. Having said all that, you have the police comments. You can ask Mr. Sepola to elaborate on the comment that I just made, but at the end of the day, we'll respect your judgment with regard to whether or not you'd want to implement a right-hand turn exit only as a condition of approval. Mr. Sepola.
Good evening. For the record, Steve Sepola, Frederick Clark Associates. We conducted the traffic study for the proposed restaurant located here. Currently, it provides one northbound lane, two southbound lanes, a shared drive-through lane, and there's a separate left turn and a separate right turn exit lane, stop sign controlled from the site. We focused just on the proposed site access.
Can you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, can you maybe take the mic out and, just hold it a little closer? Yeah, even I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
We focused mainly along the site frontage, the traffic along Black Rock Turnpike. We conducted a automatic traffic recorder, which is the little rubber tubes you see across the road. And we placed it on Black Rock Turnpike in front of the proposed site. This is the figure 4 from your traffic study, which shows the bi-direction northbound, southbound, two-way total traffic volumes along Black Rock Turnpike. And as you can see, the volume is peaking 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And as the evening goes on, you can see the significant drop-off in traffic. For purposes of our study, we looked at the peak, the highest volume along Black Rock Turnpike, which is where you would find the most impact due to the proposal. We also looked at a Saturday condition. And as you can see, the Saturday condition shows it peaking from the 12 to 1 o'clock, the mid-Saturday condition, and it drops from 5 o'clock through the evening. You can see it significantly drops off, similar to a weekday. So we analyzed again the peak of the roadway for a Saturday condition. Two-way traffic in front of the site on a Friday evening was approximately 1,550 vehicles. For a Saturday, approximately 1,600 vehicles. Okay. We looked at accident data from the Connecticut Department of Transportation and the Yukon Crash Data Repository for a 3-year period from 2014 to 2016. As you can see, there was 27 accidents, majority being rear end, side swipes, and angle collisions. Contributing factors of following too closely, failure to grant right-of-way, and failure to stay in lane. As many of you may know, in 2015, the Connecticut Department of Transportation restriped that section of roadway from 2 lanes down to 1 to then provide a northbound left turn to Swamp Meadow. Which may have caused an increase in accidents, mainly side swipes and rear ends, because of the new merger on that section of roadway. So we took...
Excuse me, sir, could you stay on that for a second?
Yes.
So are we to believe then that there are no pedestrian incidents at all in that 3-year period on that?
Pedestrian accidents?
It doesn't show any data for that, but...
No,
None in the
according
state, right?
to the DOT accident data, there was no pedestrian accidents.
Really? Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
Did you inquire the Fairfield Police Department about pedestrians?
No, we just acquired from the Connecticut Department of Transportation as it's a state highway. And they would require us to provide that data if we go to the DOT, would require this data.
Yeah.
So we took our existing traffic volumes found from our automatic traffic recorder, and we grew them by a 0.5% per year to 2018 future condition, which was per DOT planning discussions. And we added traffic for one other development that is in the area that will add traffic to the site frontage. For the proposed restaurant, using trip generation rates provided by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is industry standard, we used rates for a high turnover sit-down restaurant, and according to those rates, this restaurant is estimated to generate 34 trips during a Friday afternoon condition and 49 trips during a Saturday midday condition. Just for comparison purposes, we also provided the former drive-in bank, and the comparison showed that the bank would generate 34 additional trips during the Friday afternoon and 24 during the Saturday midday. This was just provided just for comparison purposes, but our analysis looked at just the restaurant traffic without taking any credit for the proposed bank.
Right. So I have a question about that. Was the bank actually 3,450 square feet of bank? Seems like a big bank right there.
I believe that was the existing square footage.
For the record, Phillips Road. No, there was some backspace there was some offices in there, but most of the bank was really teller area. The amount of area that was in the back, I don't have the exact calculation, was relatively minimal to it. But even the office space is a place where patrons obviously were.
Yeah.
So, but there was really actually a pretty big client patron area in the middle.
And also, if I could just add to Phil's comment, the ITE rates both for the restaurant and for the drive-in bank are based on the gross floor area. So the gross floor area would be the same for both uses.
Right, because you're not altering the footprint of the existing building, so
Correct.
that's, yeah. Mhm.
Correct. Okay, so... Okay, so based on review of current traffic patterns and estimates on where the patrons will be coming from, we used a 60% from the south, departing from the south, and 40% from the north. We assigned the site traffic for the restaurant and came up with a build condition with the restaurant, and we provided a capacity analysis of just the site driveway for a build condition. And the results of the analysis showed that the westbound, the exiting left turn movement would operate level of service D during both time periods, with the right turn operating at a level of service B during the afternoon, and level of service C during a Saturday. Level of service D or better is considered acceptable according to traffic engineering guidelines. Based on these results, there is no significant impact from the proposed restaurant on the site access and also to the main flow of Black Rock Turnpike.
Right. So how does the suggestion of making the exit right turn only out of the proposed development impact your analysis? And did you or your firm have a chance to study the impact of the proposed, the recommendation by the police department?
No, we did not conduct an analysis as a right turn exit only. A right turn exit only would operate, the right turns may operate a little bit at a higher level. Maybe this might be a level service C, maybe slightly higher increase in delay. just
Higher
from-
meaning it would go...
Because you're adding more right turn traffic.
Yeah, it would
to
all be going to the right. So, there'd be no, left turns out, and they would only be going to the right. I think you had 60% exiting to the left, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we're taking the majority of the exiting traffic, or hypothetically, and instead of splitting that between north and south, now directing that all to the north, how does that impact your analysis?
Well, this is the site traffic generation and assignment. During a Friday peak condition, you would add an additional 8 cars to the north, and during a Saturday, an additional 14 vehicles, just so you have an idea of the numbers, which then those vehicles will, as Mr. Fallon mentioned, will either look to try and make some type of U-turn through the gas station to the north, or they may make a left onto Swamp Water and go through the residential neighborhood, trying to find their way back onto Black Rock, like that, south, in that condition.
But the increase for the record, Mr. Fuller, is 8 and 14 during the peak hour.
During the peak hour condition.
Okay, that's really your question.
Yeah, no, but that's all we're talking about, because that's the basis of your study, is the numbers for the peak hours. So,
Correct.
instead of 6 turning to the north and 8 turning to the south, you'd have 14 going to the north.
Correct.
And in the Saturday, instead of 9 and 14, you'd have a total of
23.
23 turning to the north. And that's in a 1-hour period?
Yes, that's over a 1-hour period,
All right,
correct.
so it's like a car every minute and a half, basically, coming out of the building, coming out of
Correct.
approximately,
Approximately.
turning right to the north. So, I mean, I would be interested to understand whether, you know, your analysis would favor the right turn only, or keeping it, you know, both right and left.
That analysis, without doing it, I'll tell you, it will work with acceptable level of service, as does the allowing the left turn. It operates at acceptable level of service in the way.
Okay.
Both conditions will operate acceptable.
Commissioner Mackley?
We often will see this type of analysis on the right and left turns on a site that show neighboring sites and what the existing conditions are at least intersections nearby. Is there, I couldn't find it here. Is there something like that for this?
No, based on the traffic, the estimated site traffic for this proposal, according to DOT guidelines, it didn't warrant us looking at adjacent intersections or site access drives, so we just focused just on this driveway per their guidelines.
Per the DOT guidelines?
Correct.
Okay, because, these things are always difficult, at least for me, and I think for other commissioners too. You know, the reports are very thorough, you explain it nicely, it really makes sense. But, you know, as a resident, when you drive down these streets and you know, like I said before, any time of day, 10:30 at night on a, you know, Sunday night, it's impossible to get into sunny days to get an ice cream. And we're asking, you know,
We don't dispute that,
Yeah.
and I've said for 20 years, I've used what people have come to call the drop in the ocean. Black Rock Turnpike is a very, very busy commercial artery in our town. That's why we're going to study it. That's why we have under this commission's guidance, Mr. Wendt, it's going to be looked at. Agreed. However, it is commercially zoned, and the reason I wanted to at least acquaint you with the bank comparisons, at least during those peak hours we're focused on, I think it goes directly to your question, Mr. McAleese, and also to the left-hand restriction. The bank was never burdened with a left-hand restriction, and during those same peak hours we're focused on here, the bank functioned well. There was no...
The bank went out of business.
Well, I mean, from a traffic perspective, the bank functioned well. So I think, you know, if we...
I mean, these numbers didn't happen. The 84 cars, these comparison numbers, I mean, I'm really not trying to be, yeah. And I understand the comparison for the related uses based upon the ITE trip generations, and I'm sure that those exist at drive-through banks somewhere with 3,450 square feet of space. That didn't happen on this location.
Well, we don't know that. I mean, it may not have at one point, or it may have at another when it first opened. We don't know that. We can only go by the ITE
Yeah.
assumptions.
I mean,
But
I've been driving up and down that corner for almost, a long time. I won't say it.
But-
And I would bet high dollars that there were never 42 cars coming and going both directions for a total of 84 vehicle trip ends in 1 hour on a Friday peak out of that bank.
I think when the bank first opened, you might be surprised, but we'll never know. We don't have the video. What I am going to say, and it gets back to somewhat your point and Mr. McAleese's point, and it gets back to that chart I gave you. If we've got property on Black Rock Turnpike that's commercially zoned. We have zoning regulations that establish permitted uses. I know we have a zone change here. That's another point. We've discussed that. I'll discuss it again. But basically, if you start looking at changes of use on Black Rock Turnpike and say, whoa, you know, there's a lot of traffic on Black Rock. There is, but that doesn't mean that the amount of traffic here, which is relatively de minimis
compared to the overall traffic at any given time on Black Rock Turnpike,
Yeah.
provides a basis to deny an application as
No,
a permitted
I-
use.
And listen,
And I'm not saying you're going to do that, but
no, certainly, but, you know, the argument is that, you know, it's bad, and a little bit more isn't gonna make it that much worse.
Right.
Okay? And your argument is that it's zoned commercial anyway, so if not this, it can and should be something else. But you are also asking us to approve a zone change, which will enable a larger restaurant and to provide more parking spaces, which increases what you're already asking, you know, what is already permitted.
And my burden
in an
there-
area
and
where
my
there's
burden there-
congestion and
not to
traffic.
cut you off, but my burden there is to provide expert testimony as to whether or not the proposal that we make is going to have any adverse impact on levels of services and safety in the area. And I stand by Mr. Sepulve's
Yeah,
testimony.
no, and
That's-
I appreciate that.
That's why he's here.
What's the difference between what could be built on the existing commercially zoned footprint as opposed to what you're asking for with the zone
You
change?
mean from a restaurant perspective?
Yes, yes.
We have it. We'd lose approximately 25 to 30% of the proposed patron floor area. And our concern there is
25 to 30%. Okay, that's a start. What I'm more interested in is the number of parking spaces that are required for a restaurant on the existing commercially zoned area
Well, we
as
need-
opposed to what we're proposing.
well, we need one space.
And how does that impact
We-
the traffic analysis?
we
Because
need-
it could be very beneficial to you if that's a very
De minimis.
de minimis.
I get it.
And it could be not so helpful if it's, hey, we're really taking, you know, we're going from 8 parking
We can
spaces
get
to 40, you know.
On
So-
the existing commercially zoned property, we could get 30 parking spaces,
Okay,
which would translate into a patron floor area of 1,200 square feet.
okay,
We are seeking a zone change, as I've described it,
mhm,
that will facilitate an additional 12 parking spaces.
mhm.
And that allows us to get an additional 480 square feet of patron floor area. And based upon the business model that Mary and others have worked on very hard, the tipping point, you know, there's a big investment here. And this is not Applebee's, and this is not Chili's. This is Mary Walsh and Jake. And they're staking their life financially on this. And the tipping point of that 420 square feet, of 480 square feet of patron floor area, the balance lies. But to answer your question, when you're focusing on all this, and it's a great question, and whatever you decide with it, I'm glad you asked it. What this is about, in the context of everything, is 12 parking spaces. That's de minimis, hopefully you'll agree, from a traffic consideration
Oh.
perspective, but it's critical in terms of the.
I don't know that it's de minimis. Now that I have those facts, okay, which after all of that, I can summarize in 5 words.
But you know, I'm not understood.
That you're not, and you need to color it all. Now that I have those facts, I can ask your traffic expert, what does that difference look like from a trip generation perspective? The difference between 30 and 42 parking spaces and 1,200 square feet to 1,680 square feet.
Again, Steve Cipolla, Frederick Clark. That would, the translation is not the same as the patron floor area is changing, but the gross floor area is not changing. So if the gross floor area is not changing, the site traffic will not change. So even with the reduction to meet the requirements for parking, the site traffic will remain the same.
Got it. So your analysis didn't take into account whether they had 30 or 42 spaces, or whether the patron floor area is 1,200 or 1,680. Your analysis was the building is 3,450 square feet, and ITE tells me that's going to generate X and Y.
Correct.
Got it.
Is it, yeah, I think so. Is it unreasonable to just say you're looking at, what, a 25% reduction in parking? Could you say maybe a 25% reduction in the number of cars leaving the site, entering and leaving the site? Seems reasonable. Well, maybe not 25%, because
Well,
that's
in
bodies
his-
versus cars, but,
Well,
no, that's spaces, so it's cars.
I don't know if we could go to Condot and they would accept that.
Right.
Because they accept and they stand by the,
'Cause now I'm-
the ITE rates. So I don't know if they would accept that reduction based on
Right.
the reduction in parking.
But, because now I'm getting back to my original idea of looking, again, back to the code that you referenced for us, our plan of conservation and development. Perhaps you can work some agreement with the neighboring property to allow your clients or your patrons to park in their lot, and instead of dealing with a whole change of topography, you have some lovely, charming staircase that goes up and people walk up.
Because I remember from 7 years ago, that was another problem. They don't have excess parking for their use.
Looks like that by that picture, that Google picture, it looks like they have plenty of excess parking according
Well-
to that, but,
They have office upstairs, they
Yeah.
have retail, they have a lot of.
And there's the liquor store, right? The liquor store is there. There's a restaurant.
There's a couple of
So,
restaurants.
there's a number of
I mean,
things there.
I think the questions that you've asked are great questions, and it'll be ultimately something that you're gonna have to look at. It's our hope that where you'll come out is that the addition of 12 parking spaces facilitated by the zone change, so as to make this restaurant functional and successful, is relatively de minimis. But that's your job, and I think your questions have been excellent, but that's what this is really all about. When you link the zone change to the special permit, it's about 12 spaces.
Yeah.
It's about 480 square foot of patron floor area. But I can tell you sincerely, on behalf of the client,
Yeah, we got that.
critical.
We understand.
Yeah.
Not that I'm encouraging, but I'm curious, and you don't have to answer this one if you don't want to, but was there consideration of a variance for parking?
No,
No.
not really.
Too much?
For a restaurant use on Black Rock Turnpike, I'd never counseled a client to seek a variance.
Right. I agree, and I don't think I don't think it's a good idea. I was just curious as to whether or not that was considered and if, you did anything.
We thought the better approach was and is to utilize the request for a map amendment involving approximately 6,300 square feet to accommodate on-site the parking that your regs say we
Yep.
need for a restaurant of the size we need to succeed.
Right.
That's what we did.
Got it.
Thank you, Steve.
Any other questions for the traffic engineer?
Quick question.
Commissioner Noonan?
With regard to the left right exit issue, was there any issue with sight lines for taking a left-hand turn, or any turn, I guess?
Well, accordingly, this is the existing driveway, which was approved by both the town and Connecticut DOT, so it met the sightlines requirements that they required at the time of the building of the bank, and there's going to be no changes to the driveway, so the sightlines should be
The name of the sightline, Mr. Newman,
appropriate.
was reviewed by the engineering department and the police department. Police department had a comment about the left-hand turn, but they had no question what to say.
Was the left-hand turn based on sightline, and more just traffic going through?
More traffic, the way you,
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer my summary until after the public comment is completed, and hopefully we can do that on October 17. Before we go to the public,
I would like Mary Walsh, who I've referred to numerous times. I don't always or often, as part of my presentation, suggest or make part of my presentation some words from the applicant. But having worked with Mary all these past months and knowing her her passion for this proposal, her passion for the community, her vision for what she wants to do, the fact, as I say, that this is not a chain, this is not some restaurant developer either nationally or locally with 15. This is Mary's dream. So I'd like Mary just to say a
Yep.
few words, and that will serve as our summary for purposes of tonight.
Yep, okay, that's great. So why don't, since we just had two commissioners who apparently needed to take a break, why don't we just take a 2-minute break until everybody's back, okay?
Nice, we have our own microphone.
Yeah, it is nice. I'm going to tell them.
Well, you left and then I slapped in.
I'm going to call the meeting back to order, please. Take your seats. Okay? You ready to go, Matt? Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Walsh with ACM Realty. Good evening, and thank you for coming here tonight. My name is Mary Walsh, and I wanted to address why my business partner, Jake Salpetro, and I wanted to develop a sports-oriented family restaurant on the site of 2500 Black Rock Turnpike in Fairfield. My husband and I both grew up in Connecticut. We both played varsity sports in high school, representing our schools and towns. My husband even went on to play at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. Sports has always been a very important role in our lives and is one of our favorite common bonds between the two of us. After we married, we had 3 children, and we wanted to return to our roots, and so we came back, but we live in Westport. All our 3 children played varsity sports throughout all the high school, particularly the sport of soccer. My 2 daughters went on to be recruited for soccer, and they both chose to play at Fairfield University's women's soccer team. Throughout the years, our kids' love, passion, and dedication led them to play on many travel and club teams within the state. The long trips and car rides can be tough, but they created a lifetime of long-lasting friendship throughout the state, but also, particularly, we became very close to people in Fairfield. Now that my children are grown, I want to emulate that community we have built over our lifetime into a place where more bonds, friendships, and memories can grow. As a local resident, we believe this area will benefit for having a family place to take our children to after youth soccer games, baseball games, and other sports. To watch, and this is what we would like to do, is have children come and watch it, either the English Premier League, Yankees, Mets, and nothing against it, I have to say the Red Sox. I would have loved to have a place to take my girls and their teams to watch the women's U.S. team in the World Cup, and also to continue with their team or friends in an environment that was appropriate for them outside of the field. Sports provided my entire family so many life lessons throughout the years. The importance of knowing what hard work and dedication is, how to win, arguably more importantly, how to lose, and most especially how fundamental, important friendship, sportsmanship, and community are. I do feel it's important as a member of this area to continue to give back, which has given our family so much. And what better way, we feel, than have a family restaurant where teams and families can gather to celebrate a big win, or a place your family can come to watch your most favorite sporting event. I was lucky enough to meet Jake Salpetro, who's here tonight, a Massachusetts resident and former baseball star. Jake is now a volunteer assistant baseball coach at Fairfield University. Teaming up with Jake with his expertise and knowledge is just what I needed to help pursue this dream. We hope it is evident through our plans, speeches, and advocates who will speak on our behalf that we have only the best intentions, the strongest passions, and desire to give back and be part of this amazing community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so, Mr. Fallon, then you're closing your opening, your application. All right, so then at this time, I'd like to welcome any members of the public that wish to be heard to come up to the mic. And I'd just like to reiterate that if anyone would like to wait until next week to have more of an opportunity to look at the tape from tonight and get copies of the other maps that were submitted and so forth, we're going to keep the public hearing open and the public comment period open for you to be able to do that. Okay? So with that,
Good evening. My name is Lloyd Banker. I live at 345 Steiner Street, one lot away from the proposed bar and grill.
oh, sorry.
For the traffic study, I'd just like, for your information, Mr. Fallon, Mr. Cipolla, there was a very serious accident right out in front of the bank. It's further information, that's all. As you know, the residential area is zoned for half acre and is bordered on two sides by the houses. I gotta catch my breath here, just hold on.
No problem. Take your time. Take your time.
Sit down, come on, Michael.
Do you need a glass of water, sir?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, do you want to have him sit at the table and we can give him?
Oh, of course he can sit down.
Yeah, we
Please.
can move the mic over. Why don't you sit there, and then we'll move the mic over.
Yeah.
I got it.
Somebody needs to help him. The podium is sliding on him there. Here. Yeah.
He needs the cane back, probably. There you go.
Thank you. As you know, this area is zoned for half-acre lots and is bordered on two sides by houses. This requested extension of the commercial zone into a residential zone is not only an encroachment pure and simple, it is another chapter of Fairfield's growing problem of overdevelopment, a cause of considerable concern expressed by a number of town officials and many townspeople. Next to the reputation for poor schools, overdevelopment is the second fastest way to reduce the town property values. Property values in the nearby Fairfield Woods, St. Mortar areas will drop as much as 30% if the rezone requested is granted. Traffic on the Black Rock Turnpike is a cause of grave concern. Vehicles entering and leaving the parking lot can only worsen the problem. Over the years of commercial expansion, the Turnpike has become a parking lot, a nightmare at peak traffic times. As I just mentioned previously, that there was a very serious accident right near the bank this afternoon at 3 o'clock. The road was closed for almost 3 hours. Another thing that was mentioned about only turning right and going around St. Mortar. They would have to go up St. Mortar because it's one way and come down the other side because it's one way. I'm not sure, but there's not too many cars that will want to do that. Planning and Zoning Guide to Future Decisions Regarding Development and Use of Land, both public and private, calls for special attention to its policies in the Sant Mortar Black Rock Turnpike by explicitly stating expansion of commercial districts should be resisted. For this reason, and this reason alone, I respectfully request that TP and Zone to deny the requested zone change. Just as a personal footnote, I've lived there at the end of the circle, one lot away from this proposed zone, for 50 years. I brought up my family there. We've always had peace and quiet. As a personal footnote, I'm a Korean veteran, a war veteran. I'm a retiree, a widower. As an 86-year-old senior, I have several serious health problems, and that I would like to live in the rest of my life, the rest of my brief life, in peace and comfort in the house that I've lived in for a half century, without the noise, smell, light from a bar and grill less than 100 yards from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jim, why don't you turn the podium a little bit? Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Yep.
Good evening. My name is Carl Staccato. I reside at 338 Steiner Street. I'm Lloyd's neighbor. Mr. Fallon opened his remarks by saying how happy he was to be here to present this application for a zone change. Unfortunately, I don't share that happiness tonight. I'm here to oppose this zone change. This zone change is a direct violation of the Town Planning and Zoning Board. Mr. Fallon read the section that resists expansion of commercial districts. And it's Mr. Fallon's opinion that his modest zoning proposal doesn't fit that definition. Well, right now there's 18 parking spaces, and now the plan is to make parking spaces increase to 42. That's not a modest change. That's not a modest change at all. That's the beginning, and my concern, one of my major concerns, among others, is the fact that that opens up a slippery slope. You expand that those parking spaces from 18 to 42, and it's pretty common knowledge that restaurants, most go under after a year or two or three. It's very tough business, very tough business. And when this bar fails, and Miss Walsh has to sell, and we've got 42 spaces, what's going to happen? I'm going to be here fighting some other commercial endeavor that wants to put a two-story building on that property. And I don't want to be here doing that. So this is not a modest change. My concern is the slippery slope. We're opening this property up somewhere down the road to a much, much larger building being put in there because the parking spaces will be available. Now, there's no shortage of restaurants in Fairfield, and within the mile of this lot, we've counted about 36 eating places, sit-ins, where you can eat. So there's no strong desire or need for this type of business. The lot has a commercial purpose, and the size of it is perfectly fine. And you could put a bank in there, although it failed, and we've had a veterinary in there. So there are businesses that could fit in that space without any zoning change. So there's no need to make this so-called modest zoning change and put in a sports bar which is going to be open into the evening, because it's a bar, whereas a business like a bank closes at, what, 3, 4 o'clock? Or other type of office building that could fit in there. And the neighbors, my block, I'm in that cul-de-sac right next to Lloyd, I don't want to hear traffic and noise from a bar at 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So, I think the expansion also will eliminate some of the natural barriers that currently divide the commercial from the residential. And on another issue, which hasn't been brought up yet, the change with regard to, it's an insignificant change in the grand list. Rezoning this property as proposed wouldn't significantly increase tax revenue, and the downside of devaluing the properties that are bordering it in the immediate vicinity, well, that would decrease their contribution to the grand list. So I don't think there's any value, any upside to having this lot rezoned with this increase in parking. I think the downsides far outweigh the upsides. And with all due respect to Ms. Walsh, we all love sports, we all have kids who play sports, but really, Ms. Walsh, just open your bar and restaurant in Westport, not in Fairfield. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good evening. I'm Mark Dunleavy. I live at 341 Steiner Street. And other than Ab is my neighbor here, we are the two pieces of property that directly border the property that's mentioned here. Earlier today, I sent each one of you on the board an email with this 3.5-page letter. I'm not going to read all of it tonight. I will touch on some points.
We appreciate that. You know, I neglected, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I neglected to mention that I typically do. All members of the public are free to submit their comments in writing, and we read every word of it. We did get your letter, and I appreciate you telling me that you're not going to stand up there and read it again.
Right.
Because if you do submit something in writing, we really don't need you to come up and just read your letter into the record. So I just want to put that out there, and everyone who's here is free to do that too.
Okay.
Thanks.
I just want to touch on a few points from that letter, not the whole thing, and correct some errors that the attorney made regarding the history of that property. I've been at my property since 1963. It's 54 years. I doubt there's anybody in this room that knows the history of that area more than I do. First off, there were 2 banks there that went out of business. Not one. There was like a First Hudson or something like that that was there before the HSBC. Second, that rectangular strip of land that was residential that you couldn't figure out what it was, it's rock. It's a cliff. It's basically impossible to build on. That was probably the leftovers from when this board did a separate zoning change to allow the 3-story office building to go in there, because that was a separate thing. And prior to that, there was another zoning change where that little strip mall went in, because before that, that was all residential property. There was a house there right next to where the animal hospital was, and the reason that there's a bank that was put there is because Dr. Raven retired. You mentioned something earlier about no pedestrian accidents. That's because the sidewalk ends at that stoplight going down to St. Mortar. So there's very few people that walk on that sidewalk anyway. There's nothing there afterwards. My opinion, the only practical use for that property is a single-family house. I know it's zoned commercial, but the way in and out of that, it's impractical for basically anything else. The next door parking lot does have spare parking available. The reason being, the only businesses that would be open at night would be that one little restaurant there. That's when this restaurant would be doing their prime thing. There would be no reason to extend into the area for the zone change for additional parking. And as I said, this has gone through 3 different zone changes in my life. At one time, there was a bowling alley way back when, over there. That was before the gas station I was put there. So again, the main point I'm going to bring up is, one, there's going to be noise at all hours of the day. When my windows are open from May to October, I can hear arguments in the parking lot at Citgo. So now I'm going to hear anything that's coming out of a sports bar after a Monday night or Sunday night football game when I'm trying to sleep or something like that. It's going to be ridiculous. Not to mention whatever smells or aroma may come my way. Plus, if there's going to be lighting in the parking lot, is it going to get turned off at midnight or 1 in the morning, or no? Is it going to be on all night, every day of the year? So now we have light pollution as well as noise and regular pollution. The reason the bank was put there, because the original proposal was a 3-story office building, was because of pollution runoff, because it dumps down into St. Mortar at a lower elevation, and there was a huge outcry from the people from that area before. Well, what kind of garbage or pollution are you going to have from a bar or a restaurant? I'm sure it's not something that's going to people are going to want to swim in down at St. Mortar. The exit, it's not you're all aware of that exit there. It's basically blind from both directions. So I really don't have to talk about that. Again, if there is another need for a sports bar and grill or anything like that, which I have no objections to in general, there are vacant lots in Fairfield that would be much more appropriate for this than that particular lot. Again, all different types of pollution, and basically, after 54 years already, having gone through 3 zone changes, how many times does a neighborhood have to lose its tranquility in order to sustain the insatiable value for profit? Would you guys do that to your neighborhood?
Thank you very much. Now, any other members wish to be heard tonight? Members of the public, sorry, members of the public, yes. Yes, sir.
Good evening, member of the commission. My name is Abbas Nadim. I just came from work, so I did not have the opportunity to listen to the applicant presentation, but I wanted to just share with you that I share, the excellent point raised by my other neighbors, and point by point, and I hope to get a chance, if the meeting is continued, to be able to be presented at the time that you open up so that I can make some comments. Thank you.
Very good. This will be continued until next week, when public comment will continue. Yep, come on in.
Yes, hi, my name is Tom Saucier. I live on North Benson Road. I've lived in Fairfield my whole life, so I know a lot about traffic. I live directly on North Benson Road. One of the thousands of times I've been at Country Cow, and the bank went out of business, I just looked over there and said, boy, that would be a great restaurant. Just looks like a restaurant to me. So I think we need to take advantage of this opportunity. What's the building going to be? It's been sitting there for 3 years doing nothing. How many more years are you going to sit there doing nothing? So if somebody wants to invest in our community, I'm all for it. I think it's a no-brainer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm Suzanne Pullen, and I'm here with my husband, Mark Pullen, and I'm very small. We've been in Fairfield for almost 20 years now. We raised 3 kids in Fairfield. We're still raising 3 kids in Fairfield. It goes on forever. And there was nothing here when we first got here. I mean, we couldn't really take our kids out to dinner. We went to Joe's American Bar and Grill, and to this day, I'm still saying, oh, I never want to go back there again, because we went there so often. And then Colony comes into town. How long has it been there? 5 years? I don't remember. But my kids were just kind of aging out, and I just looked at this place, and I'm like, God, I wish it was around when my kids were little, because we really had nowhere to go. I mean, we moved here when I think it was Steinbeck's that was in where the Gap is. There was Friendly's that long ago. I don't know, but I mean, I think this town is awesome now. And when we moved here 20 years ago, it was still kind of reinventing itself. You know, it wasn't the destination location that it is today. My friends from Westport, I work in Westport, I live in Fairfield. My friends from Westport are coming to Fairfield to have dinner now. I never knew that was ever going to happen, because we always went to Westport to have dinner as Fairfielders. There was just nothing here. So quite frankly, I'm proud of the fact that we have become this destination location. I live in Lake Hills. I live right off Black Rock Turnpike. I've taken that left into Sunny Days, and you know when it's awful? The night of a concert at the middle school. That's when you're going to shoot yourself. But you know what? We still do it, because it's a cool place. So I think we all have a little bit of patience when it comes to something that's good for our kids and our family and our neighborhood. And although I 100% understand where everybody's coming from, being a neighbor myself, but I just see a real positive spin on this, you know, and I always have, ever since Mary, when she told me, I want to open a restaurant, I'm like, okay, you know, I mean, it's Mary, it's not a developer and a client, like I find that funny, I'm hearing all this, but she's just a really cool mom of 3 kids, and I'm like, this is going to be cool, because she gets it, and I think the concept is going to be great, and I'm going to be the first person walking in that door if it comes to fruition, because it's close to my house. I don't have to go all the way downtown. I don't have to wait a Colony for an hour while the Little League teams come in and out, because that's what they are. She's probably going to sponsor every Little League in town, because that's the way she is. And I definitely think it's going to be it would be an awesome addition to our area. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Come on up.
Good evening, all. My name is Glenn Levinson. I am a lifelong resident of Fairfield and also a member, family business owner for 56 years in this town. I have known the Walshes on a personal and professional relationship and can say without hesitation that the integrity that they will bring to this community is without reproach. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to be heard tonight? Going once? Going twice? Okay. So with that then, I will adjourn the hearing for this evening, but I'm going to leave the public hearing open, and next week at our meeting, we will resume with public comment. Exactly. So, next item on our agenda is 1427, 1443 Kings Highway, application of John and Timothy Philbin for a 24-unit residential development pursuant to Section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes in the Design Commercial District. So, if everyone could try to just assemble outside. We still have another item on the agenda here that we're going to go into public hearing.
You're a bomber. You hear that? So you look at me, you're a bomber.
Okay. Not so much interest in this application. Okay. Mr. Fallon, you know, so you can just give us a stack and we'll pass it along. Thank you so much.
No, it is 1427 and 1443. Okay. Yep.
Okay? Let's go.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, I'm John Fallon. I'm here tonight representing the applicants, John and Timothy Philbin. They are both present here. And our proposal is to construct a 24-unit multifamily residential rental development at 1427 and 1443 Kings Highway. The development will consist of 24 one-bedroom units and is an affordable housing development pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G. I think most of you would be familiar, but obviously the Philbins have generational roots in the community, both personally and professionally. They are local contractors, developers, and their reputation, I think, precedes them. They are going to own and manage this particular venture, and I think that bodes very well in terms of the ability to get done what they say they're going to do. I think this building is beautiful. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but they've had a lot to do working with Pat Rose, who I'll introduce in a minute, to make sure the design of the building is something special. This development, I think, is very, very significant on a lot of levels. Obviously, it's an affordable housing development, and the Affordable Housing Committee has spoken to that more eloquently than I would in the letter that they provided you. I think it's also a very significant and positive catalyst to the development in the area, including the transit-oriented design overlay district. We could be part of that district, but our lot area on a combined basis is a little too small. But yet, what's happening downtown, I call it downtown, what's happening in this area of town is really very exciting. And you guys have your fingerprints all over it to your credit. The trademark building that's now open and operational, the opportunities that I hope and expect will shortly present themselves with regard to Fairfield Metro Center. I think we're going to see great things as a result of your vision in establishing the transit-oriented design overlay district. And I think this building, you know, directly across the street from the Fairfield Metro train station, in that area, a short walk from the trademark building, it says it all about what you and all of us were trying to accomplish relative to that area. And I think it'll be an exciting catalyst. As I said, the development will consist of 24 one-bedroom units in accordance with the request. Actually, we were going to do it anyway, but the good input from the Affordable Housing Committee, we've dedicated one unit to ADA compliance and handicap accessibility. That is noted in our affordability plan that I will reference shortly. And I also said the proposal is submitted pursuant to Connecticut's Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Act, Section 8-30G. The affordability plan, the compliance affordability plan is found starting at page 3 of my application document that I provided to you as required by the statute and as set forth in the document. 30% of the units, that's 8 units, will be deed restricted as affordable for a period of 40 years. As I detail in the affordability plan, 4 of those units will be reserved for persons earning less than 60% of the statewide median income, and 4 of the units will be reserved for persons earning less than 80% of the statewide median income. We anticipate that the units, both affordable and the market rate units, will be occupied primarily by people over 50 and younger people. All people who want to stay in Fairfield may want to downsize, may want to stay here because they grew up here. We think that the units will be particularly attractive to these folks, many of whom will include, I would imagine, based upon experience in other 8-30G developments, town employees, police, fire, teachers, and the like. This application, this particular proposal, has the added benefit, I think, of attractiveness based upon its direct proximity to the Fairfield Metro train station. A young man looking to catch the 5:55 into New York could probably set his alarm clock at about 5:20, and as long as he has an electric razor, he'll make that train. So we think that's really a great thing. As far as the project itself, I'm going to call on Pat Rose in a minute from Rose Tissot Architects. He'll walk you through the site plan, the architectural plans. We do propose a total of 24 parking spaces as provided. We believe that is consistent with the standards established under section 28.6.1 of your transit-oriented design overlay, where you specify that one-bedroom units should maintain a parking ratio of 1 space per one-bedroom unit. And we've done that here. I think in addition to that, again, the proximity to the train station is going to be very helpful because we're going to have a lot of people who are going to rely on the train for their daily commute. The entire building will be equipped with an NFPA 13 automatic fire suppression system as requested by the fire marshal. We were going to do it anyway. You have a letter from the Affordable Housing Committee dated October 2, 2017. It speaks for itself. We're very, very appreciative for their input and support. I have found over the last 6 months or so, it is very helpful to receive the benefit of their input. I know Jan Reber is here tonight. The affordability plan that you have before you is based upon their model plan that I know Jan's had a great deal of input in, and it's been very instructive for me to be able to work with him and the committee with regard to the development of such plans.
Yep, thank you. I didn't see the letter from the Affordable Housing Commission in our packet. Do you have it?
We may, I thought we emailed it when we got it, and it may not have been in your, I don't think hard copy was in your packet, but it might be something that you can certainly scan it and email it.
Yeah, why don't you send it around? Because I don't recall seeing that in email either. Does anyone know?
I don't know, I don't remember seeing it.
Just so the record, it'll be part of your record, but I will then take a second just to tell you that the letter's dated October 2nd. It indicates the mission of the Affordable Housing Committee as being an advocacy group to promote affordable housing. It references the fact that we made a presentation to the committee on September 13, and then it indicates that it supports our proposed set-aside residential development for the following reasons, and I'll summarize them. There's a need for more affordable and workforce housing in Fairfield. According to the most recent data, roughly 2% of the town's housing stock is considered affordable. This development would add 8 units of affordability. Given the proximity to mass transit, the site is well suited for the type of housing being proposed and would provide additional housing options for the community. The proximity to shopping and other services, such as restaurants and movie theaters, is beneficial to tenants. The project makes good use of the site, fits well within the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The developers will make one of the affordable units ADA compliant, addressing a significant need for more accessible units. The developers modeled their affordability plan on the model affordability plan and reporting requirements prepared by this committee. The one thing I would point out, just to reassure the committee, and we very much appreciate, this letter was signed, by the way, by Cynthia San Marco and Robert Frigo, the co-chairs. Although the committee is supportive of the development, it has concerns related to the number of parking spaces. I've addressed that. It is compliant with your regulations for one-bedroom units. Secondly, while the committee is impressed that the project is being developed by local businessmen who have a stake in the community, we are concerned that they do not appear to have relevant experience in implementing an affordable housing plan or in managing affordable housing. The two things I would say to that respectfully are, these two gentlemen probably manage, I don't know, a score of rental units around the community. They've been doing it for many years, so they know how to run a rental community. As far as the special needs or requirements under the affordability plan, there are two things I would say to that. One, we have an affordability plan. It's very detailed. It lays out the ground rules for how you are going to market and manage affordable plans. And the other thing is, they know they've been conception of this proposal in their minds. They've worked very closely with Mark Barnhart and his office, and so I don't think there'll be any problem with missing a step in terms of the compliance issues here, and they're committed to it. But overall, that's the letter from the
Thank you.
Affordable Housing Committee, and we appreciate their support. This is the time when the chair normally wants me to outline for the record what an 8-30G application means, because oftentimes there's members of the public here, and there is a desire on the part of both the applicant and the commission to make sure they are aware of the special nature. I will be very brief in that regard today, because I know this commission is very well schooled in that particular area of the law, and indeed I'd want to acknowledge for this record the commission's very open-minded and supportive approach to 8-30G applications as witnessed over the last few years, at least with regard to numerous applications I've had the pleasure to bring before you. But as you know, under the statute, an appeal from any denial of an 8-30G application, the commission has the burden to prove, based upon evidence of the record before the commission, that one, the decision is necessary to protect substantial public interest in health, safety, and other matters which the commission may legally consider. Such public interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes in the affordable housing development. Those are a recent statement from the Bryn Mawr Properties case versus the town of Lisbon. That's an appellate court decision from last February. 8-30G does not allow a commission to use traditional zoning regulations to justify a denial of an affordable housing application unless non-compliance with the regulations results in a situation where denial is necessary to protect the substantial interest in health, safety, therefore clearly outweighing the need for affordable housing. Again, I don't mean to rush through that, but I don't want to lecture this commission about something you know so well, and I think people in the audience are well familiar with the standards of review. This is an application in all of its elements that I think is another example of what 8-30G should be intended to foster in communities like us that are trying to address the needs for additional affordable housing. And we're doing so with projects such as this at sites that are well suited, will have benefits collateral even to affordable housing opportunities just by providing an exciting residential development in an area that we're very focused on encouraging. We did receive an inland wetlands permit, IWPA 216-1711. It was unanimously approved on July 5, 2017. We had a code enforcement review on August 15, 2017, and all aspects of code comments have been complied with. So what I'd briefly like to do is call on Pat Rose of Rose Tiso to talk to you about the site plan and architectural plans, and then have Steve Cipolla, hardworking Mr. Cipolla tonight, give you a brief overview with regard to the traffic report that has been submitted.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Rose from the firm Rose Tiso and Company. I'm a licensed architect in the state of Connecticut and the architect for the project. Just to quickly go through the location of the site, which I believe you're all probably familiar with. Kings Highway to the bottom of the sheet, Ash Creek Boulevard on the bridge going over to the train station on the other side, then Constant Comment Way to the Kiss and Drop section to the train station right behind us. Site being a third of an acre, completely landlocked. Behind us is the retention basin for the Metro train station. So that's why we were at wetlands and received approval from wetlands associated with that property behind us. So what we're proposing is to put 24 one-bedroom units in a 3-story building on a podium above parking. 24 parking spaces, where on the outside of the site with a 5-foot buffer, and then 4 parking spaces in the center where we also have the main core of the building. You enter the core from Kings Highway to an elevator. There's mechanical, electrical, and sprinkler rooms down there. And then you have 2 stairways, one of which brings you to the garage. The other one brings you down into that lobby, so you can exit out on Kings Highway. It's actually one of the comments from the fire marshal requesting that we get one of those stairs back into that lobby. So they're going the 2 different directions, which we've been able to comply with. Also on the site, what we've done is we've created the inn on the side towards Ash Creek Boulevard and the exit on the side towards Constant Comment. That was one of the comments from the police at the code that we said we could work that out and it would be adequate for exit and entry into the site. On the site also we have bicycle parking in this corner of the site, dumpster enclosure in the opposite corner of the site to the rear. What we've done is we've raised the building up so it's 10 feet underneath the building so that we can have a refuse truck come in, pick up underneath that building. They have a truck that can do it in 10 feet and then exit the site. So we've been able to accommodate that. We've raised the building a foot actually to make that work. Certainly.
Have you confirmed that a garbage company, 10 feet of elevation is sufficient?
Yes. We went specifically to a couple carriers that the Philbins deal with and talked to them, and they have equipment that they can do it within 10 feet. Wouldn't have done it unless we could.
And plumbers and electricians going to go under there or out on the street?
Moving truck is probably going to end up being on the street because he's going to be taller than 10 feet. Most other people in a van that's doing service and things like that would fit under a 10-foot.
And where would they park?
They're going to end up parking in a space that's available when they're there.
Because there's no visitor parking?
Correct. But they'll be there during the day when people are working, so there will be parking available during the day.
Well,
They're not assigned parking spaces?
are they assigned?
No.
And
Is
what,
there on-street parking on Kings Highway?
There is not on-street parking on Kings Highway. There is a decent shoulder on Kings Highway, but there is not on-street parking.
The Philbins do own
Aren't you having a curve?
property
Directly across the street.
adjacent to the site, so that if we had a situation where, you know, a workman, a plumber or something wanted to access, you know, a building and not park under the building, you know, and that could be arranged with the tenant, because we do own the property directly across the street.
so that would require a formal, parking sharing arrangement or
Yeah,
agreement?
I'm just saying, to answer Ms. Francis' question, if there was a time that, you know, the 2 workmen there, so we think there'll be more than sufficient parking, especially during the day, based upon the 24 spaces to accommodate an electrician or something like that, but there is the opportunity if someone wanted to, with our permission, to park across the street for a short period of time. We're not relying on it in compliance with our parking needs.
Look like Stonehenge across the
I have 2 questions.
Commissioner.
Is parking allowed currently on Kings Highway?
She just asked that. There's no parking.
On Kings Highway? I didn't hear
There's
that,
no
sorry.
parking.
And also, was the fire department concerned at all about having to get, I guess if it's
No,
sprinkler,
it's a sprinkler
they're happy with
facility.
that, they could do that from
They're
the
not
street?
going underneath the
Yeah, they
building.
don't need to go underneath it, okay.
Just to continue on site plan, We've gotten the wetlands approval. The town engineer has also approved our drainage, which essentially everything slopes from Kings Highway back to a drainage swale in the back where we're collecting all the water. Then it goes into a subsurface infiltration system, and then pavement is being diverted to catch basins, which go to a downstream defender, and that leads to the subsurface drainage system, and then that goes out actually, and it ends up in that retention basin that's right behind us eventually, if it gets over the capacity of that system. Just to quickly go through the building, which I already talked about the first floor.
Mechanicals on,
Typical floor plan, sorry?
mechanicals on the roof, where are they, like the air handler?
Get that,
Okay.
1 second.
Great, thank you.
Well, we have our 8 apartments, all one bedrooms. They range from 648 square feet to 745 square feet. A couple different configurations, but they all have a bedroom, bathroom, washer, dryer, stacked, and a mechanical room. So what we're doing is that each one of these has their own mechanical room with the condenser, with the furnace in that space. Anything that we have mechanical that's going to service the core would be on the roof. But how we have it on the roof, there's a mansard roof, so there's a flat roof that's
Right.
hidden, everything's hidden.
It's a minimum.
Below that, so that's easily taken care of. The exterior of the building, which we've worked very closely with the Philbins, they want it the way they want it, and I purely appreciate that. What we've done on the base is we've got a base of stone, which actually carries out into stone walls which block parking on the 2 sides, where there's parking that goes around the building, so you don't see the car. Above that...
How tall is that stone wall?
I'm sorry?
How tall is that stone wall?
I think it's 4.5 feet. So you may see the top of the car, but you're not going to see.
Right, sure.
see.
And there's a space between, yeah, it's about 5.5 feet or so of space and above that. Yeah. That's nice. Mm-hmm.
Then brick above that, brick veneer. We've used arched windows. We've got brick soldier courses, brick sills to highlight the building. We've put in these bay windows. They'll be done out of an ethos material, just to make them pop, change the look of that building. The roof line, which we've sort of done a little Victorian-esque train station, where we've put brackets that are holding up this large overhang to try and dress it up. That is a mansard that wraps all the way around. The building is similar on the front and the back.
Mm-hmm.
And its detail, so we're not skimping out somewhere, because you can see this building from all around where we're located. So we think that's a very handsome building, and be a great entrance building to going to the train station.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone have any questions? Terrific, thank you. Oh, Commissioner Brown.
I'm sorry, I have one question. You said there's a handicap unit, but it's not shown on the plan. Is that something that came in after the drawing?
What we have to do with all of these units, they'll all be type B units, which are handicap adaptable, because it's serviced by an elevator, but we will end up having 3 handicap accessible units. We hadn't chosen which ones they will be yet until we get to that portion, because we have to do the affordability plan, decide which ones are affordable, then which ones got the handicap affordable units, so that's something we'll do.
But it will be a complete built-out handicap unit?
Yes, yes, it will. We have to do 3 of them for permitting. It has to be 3.
part of our affordability plan, which is part of your record. We're bound by
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Yes.
Parking, 24 parking consistent with the transit only, what was that?
Yes, it's, excuse me, it's, section 28.6.1. The it's specified in the transit-oriented design only the parking requirement for one-bedroom units is one space per unit.
Right. So then the point is that for a building that otherwise would be permitted in the TOD,
Right.
it's one bedroom, one space for one bedroom. So, yep.
And we'd be part of the TOD,
Yeah.
but for our
Total acreage.
Understood. Yep.
So I think it establishes a baseline in your regulations
Mhm.
that for a one-bedroom unit development, a space per unit is appropriate.
Right, I understand. Yeah.
Um,
Follow up on that?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I just wanted to get this.
I have a question for the architect.
Yes.
So just about the stone wall that carries around. Looks like there's some elevation change, at the base where we're building this in. And on the site plan, I see the stone wall, but then it almost looks like it stops. Does the stone wall continue all the way around?
No, it does not. The stone wall closes off Kings Highway.
Kings
comes
Highway.
across, turns around the corner,
Okay,
comes across, turns around the corner.
okay.
Stops.
And then around the corner where it stops, is that then just simply open?
Correct. It's open, landscaped area around the edges of that.
And, okay.
Oh, I see.
Sure.
I think it's this. This is where it
Because
stops on the elevation.
Oh, where's the elevation?
Around
To the back,
Ash Creek wouldn't do us a lot of
Yeah.
good because Ash Creek
think this
goes
is that
up
dark
and
line.
you see
Yep.
down into the parking space anyway.
I see it now.
And this is actually vegetated
So
on this side. So
the elevations show the stone wall actually going about halfway along each side of the building and then a little bit in the back.
Yeah, I think what you mean, see this dark line? That shows the dog leg. It goes like this, and then dog leg's a little bit back.
Look at that stone wall right there.
That's in the back behind it, that's the foundation of the building, in the background.
You're seeing on the front elevation, you're seeing the stone wall
Yep.
going beyond where the parking is, turning, going beyond where the parking is and turning.
Show the, point out the turn on the bottom, yeah, it's to the left there, isn't it? That dark line, way over, isn't that the return of the stone wall on the left side there?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that little bit there is the
Correct.
return.
That's the front lobby as you come in.
So it comes across, it goes back just a few feet.
Correct.
4
And
feet
you're
or
seeing
something.
You're seeing the lobby coming back in this way.
That's in the background behind it.
Right.
An elevation.
I think I understand.
Same thing on the left side elevation. You're seeing the turn, the lobby coming back, the door, the sprinkler room, and the elevator, it's air stair elevator.
Okay. I think I understand.
This piece here is actually in front of the back. This is the wall, the lobby stuff in the back.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Lastly, we have Mr. Steve Cipolla of Frederick P. Clark and Associates. We submitted a traffic report dated September 19, 2017. I'm going to ask Steve if he'll briefly summarize that. I know he'll point it out, but I think it's important that we also emphasize that we took no credit in our analysis with regard to residents using the adjacent Fairfield Metro North train station for purposes of evaluating peak hour impacts. And I think you will hear Steve, as the report indicates that there is no adverse impact with regard to level of service during peak hours occasioned with the traffic generation that is assumed for this particular development. Steve.
Good evening. For the record, Steve Cipolla, Frederick Clark Associates. We conducted the traffic study for the proposed residential development located between Constant Comment Way and Ash Creek Boulevard. As part of our study area, we looked at the signalized intersection of Ash Creek Boulevard and Kings Highway East and the two-way stop-controlled intersection Kings Highway East at Constant Comment Way and Rhode Island Avenue. We conducted manual turn and movement counts October 26, 2016, for a weekday morning, weekday afternoon, 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning, 4 to 6 p.m. in the afternoon. Based on those counts, the peak hours occurred between 7 and 8 a.m. and 5 to 6 p.m. Our counts found that two-way traffic in front of the site between the two intersections was approximately 940 vehicles, both morning and afternoon. To grow these traffic volumes to a 2020 no-build condition, we added a 0.5% annual growth rate per discussions with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. We also added traffic for 3 other developments in the area. As mentioned, the proposal is for 24 units of apartments using the chip generation rates from the Institute of Transportation Engineers chip generation manual. It's estimated that this type of development will generate 17 and 19 vehicle trip ends during the morning and afternoon peak hour conditions. These are numbers that are not adjusted to take credit for the close proximity to the train station, so no transit credit was taken to provide a conservative analysis. Based on existing traffic patterns in the area, we created a distribution of arriving vehicles, 30% arriving from the, I guess that's the south on Kings Highway, with 60% arriving from the north on Kings Highway and 10% arriving from the Ash Creek over from Black Rock Turnpike, and exiting 50% to the north, 40% to the south, and 10 over Ash Creek. Using this distribution, we assigned the site traffic generation to come up with a build condition. Based on our capacity analysis, comparing a no-build condition without the proposed development to a build condition with the development, as you can see, both the traffic signal intersection, Kings Highway East at Ash Creek and the Stone Ridge Way, and the two-way intersection at Kings Highway East at Constant Comment Way and Rhode Island Avenue will maintain acceptable level of service with minimal increases in delay. The site ingress will operate at level of service A during both peak hours, and exiting traffic will operate at a level of service B in the morning and a level of service C during the afternoon, which are acceptable level of services. Based on this, the proposed project will not significantly impact the surrounding intersections or the main line Kings Highway East. Also, as part of our study, we requested accident data from the Fairfield Police Department from January 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2016, and they came back that there was no accidents at both intersections and the section of road in front of the site between the two intersections.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I don't really have much else to say. I guess the two things I'd leave with is, irregardless, man, I'm doing good. Are you all right for it? Irregardless of the HS-30G component, I think this commission has focused very well over the last 4 years or so on this area of town. I think it's a jewel waiting to be polished. I think that's starting to happen. Whether this was an 8-30G or not, I'd be very proud to present this building to you. Its location, proximate to the trademark building and other things that are happening there, I just think it creates vitality. As far as 8-30G, I appreciate and endorse the comments of the Affordable Housing Committee. This is an 8-30G proposal that's sensitively designed, provides 8 affordable units when we need more affordable units, and will address affordable workforce needs in the community, but do it in a location that I think is compatible with that use and will have a positive dynamic, both in terms of affordability considerations and generally. So we hope you'll favorably consider the application, and on behalf of the Philbins, we do appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Question, Commissioner Francis?
I'd like to get back to the parking. Are people without stickers that they live there going to be permitted to park under there, i.e. visitors?
Sure. We have, you know, what we have is 24 parking spaces for 24 one-bedroom units. In proposing that, we mirror your regulation in the TOD. But certainly, we feel the 24 spaces will be generally adequate to provide for the parking needs day-to-day of the residents and their guests, especially considering our proximity to
All right,
the train
so
station.
someone has bridge in for 8 people in the afternoon, and the guys start coming home from work, and some will have 2 cars, a husband and a wife, or
those
2
things can
men.
happen.
So where are they going to park? That's my question.
I guess, first of all, I temper whether or not you'd have a bridge party for eight
Women
people
do that in the
that,
afternoon,
but
yes, they do.
The bottom line is, the application provides 24 parking spaces, which is the standard for one-bedroom units promulgated in your regulations.
Yep.
And then I can't answer hypothetical questions respectfully about, you know, bridge parties in the middle of the afternoon. I can tell you that the parking requirement that we have applied here is consistent with what, after study of the TOD, you felt to be appropriate for this general area for one-bedroom units.
But where are these people going to park?
I can't answer that. I hope they'll be able to park on site. In a worst-case scenario, if somebody's going to throw a bridge party with 8 guests or a surprise party with 15 guests, they'll have to make other arrangements. But we are complying with what we think is an appropriate parking requirement, especially in the context of an 8-guest.
Well, if you didn't let people in with no sticker, that would pretty much solve the problem.
Well-
But if you're going to let visitors in, I don't understand when there's no parking.
So let's
where
talk
people are gonna
about,
park.
let's talk about what is available off-site. So there's no parking on Kings Highway. Where is the nearest adjacent public parking?
Train station,
Train station. You can't park there without a sticker
but you can in off hours.
in off hours.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can, yes.
Okay.
I don't
That's
know them
1,500
offhand.
spaces. So on a
but
weekend, much like the downtown
Right.
train station,
Yep.
weekends and evenings.
You can.
And
So
that's-
during the day, during the week, that's a
After
sticker only.
6,
Yeah,
You
right.
can park
After
off-site.
6, the train station parking lot is available, so that's there. And I guess there is connection for someone, I'm not quite sure how one would walk.
There's a bridge.
From-
You go,
Yeah,
to-
right
you go to the New York bound platform.
Go over
take
New
the bridge
York.
over, and then you're on the other side.
And you can walk all the way over to Kings Highway? I mean, I'm looking at it right
Come
here.
out to get to the train station.
This is the site right here. Here's the entrance.
You walk here, and across this bridge, and
Uh-huh.
get to the other
All
side.
right. So there's that. Now,
There's also Whole Foods.
That's a bit of a walk.
There's a
that's...
That's a bit of a walk.
It's a bit of a walk. All right.
It's also not
But
public,
fair enough.
really.
It's not, that's true. It's not a public parking
private
lot.
property, so-
I mean, it is private property, and the parking spaces are for those businesses. That's true. So what is the property that you referenced across the street that the Philbins own for which they would allow parking?
1436 Kings Highway.
Is that the, this photograph in the traffic study is what I'm looking at, which is really helpful as the area.
Yeah, all the trucks in the lot, yeah.
Directly across the street.
So you've got some storage, construction vehicles,
Contractor storage.
right? Okay,
Here it is, on the bigger, that property.
yep. Okay, so to the extent that, there would be overflow parking that, you would allow, for residents and their guests at that site, would there be some sort of designated area? It doesn't look like there are any stripe spaces. How would people know sort of where to put their car if they were to park there?
I mean, we're happy, I don't know how you phrase it, but certainly we can advise tenants in a situation like Commissioner Francis raised. If somebody is having 8 ladies over to play bridge, we would want the tenant to know that they can access this area for parking for their guests.
Yeah, and frankly, it's not necessarily just for the guests. So let's say I live there, and one or more of my neighbors are having some guests over, and I arrive home, and there's no parking space for me. I gotta park my car somewhere, and it is a reasonable question to ask.
Yeah, no, it isn't. It is a reasonable, and I think we are fortuitous in being able to answer it in that the identical parties in interest.
Yeah.
And as you can see, this lot is not heavily burdened, as you can see from this aerial. So, I mean, we could establish.
You can also park on either side of Rhode Island Avenue, going up and coming down.
Okay, so just repeat that for the record, because that's what I'm asking. Where is the next adjacent public parking? And if there is public parking on street, on Rhode Island Avenue, well, then that answers the question.
Must be on New England too, right?
It's a block away. All right, so, yeah. Is there public parking on Stone Ridge Way as well?
No, that's got a gate, you can't go in.
But probably on New England though, right?
New England Avenue. Is there public parking on New England Avenue?
Okay, so that I think answers the question. All right, any other?
Mr. Grauer has a question.
Commissioner Brown?
A concern, it's basically a busy intersection, and most people probably aren't leaving early to get to the train, and you've got a building that's going border to border, basically, and you've got all this construction equipment that's going to be there putting it up. Would the Philbins be willing to make it a contingent upon approval to use their property across the street for the construction equipment?
We intend to. That's what we're gonna do.
Okay? It just wasn't clear.
You can make that, referenced in your approval. That's our intent. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I don't know how else we're gonna do it. Tight site.
That's probably how we could.
Good.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do.
All the materials. Everything will be over machines.
Yeah.
It's gonna make it a lot easier in terms of the construction, because we'll be able to, that's our laydown area, so to speak.
Okay. Good.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this? Yes, sir, come on up.
Jan Reber, Beaumont Street. I support this application because it provides true workforce, no-frills housing. It meets a market need that's not filled by a trademark or by the proposed up-the-road apartments that you turn down and they're probably going to come back to you. This place has no amenities, going to have lower rent, I'm sure, and really fills a need in Fairfield for diverse, inexpensive rental housing. Obviously, I like the fact it's going to have some ADA compliance to it and follow our affordability plan. I have one problem with it, and I have a brief handout about it. You heard the architect say that they haven't decided what units are going to be affordable and which are not. That violates the 830G. 830G 8B1D states, quote, location of such units within the proposed development must be specified in the affordability plan. They have not done that. They don't intend to do that. In fact, the affordability plan says that they're going to inform the zoning enforcement officer of unit allocations. That's simply not a good idea. It violates 830G, and you as a commission really should be looking at what units are going to be affordable in the building and the way they're going to be allocated. And I just have a brief handout that just asks you to make that a condition of approval. Otherwise, I think this is a great project. I hope you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. So in your review, the affordability plan meets all of the other requirements of
It does.
830G?
It's well done.
Thank you.
We're very happy to adopt.
Hold on. You're not there. You're not there. Any other members of the public wish to be heard? All right. Mr. Fallon, rebuttal.
Just endorsing Mr. Reaver's comments, point well taken, we're happy to abide by a condition of approval so that we would specify in advance of any construction activity or any building permits the precise location of the affordable units.
Excellent. All right, terrific. Thank you. With that, I'll close the public hearing on this item, and I will adjourn the meeting.